map our marketing efforts to each stage of the funnel. We want to make sure that we have ample coverage, that our messaging pushes a consumer in the right direction, and that we're not doing anything to hamper that progression. But before we can do that, we need to better understand the buyer journey so that we can evaluate the type of marketing to use in each stage of this journey. When you know the journey, you'll know where to deploy solutions. The funnel has helped us understand the steps they'll go through, but there's still a journey within those steps. A user can have many touch points within each stage, and unless we're careful, we'll create scenarios where users wander aimlessly. The journey within this funnel needs to be systematic and reflect the notion that we're moving the user downwards within it. We understand the buyer will go through the stages from awareness to action, and then hopefully to loyalty, which is a stage we never really discussed. It's after a user converts if they stick around and show loyalty to your brand. But what does the buyer journey look like within these stages? How did the buyer become aware? Did they walk into a store and see the product on the shelf? Did they hear about it from a friend? Did they click on a social media advertisement? If they saw an item on the shelf, are there competing products alongside yours? If so, what does that do for their journey? When they run an ad, are there competing ads alongside yours? And what does that do for their journey? They may now be comparing your product to the one next to it. And if so, are they comparing it on cost or on benefit? The buyer may be moving up and down the funnel. There are so many variables that we as marketers are working to account for. Think about all the steps involved in the decision-making process. Within each stage, they'll define their own path, interact with various brand touchpoints, and hopefully move towards the next step in the funnel. With the increase of mobile devices and digital connectivity, consumers are exposed to too much of everything. They've got access to a lot of information, and they're constantly being bombarded with messaging up and down the funnel from a plethora of brands. It's here that we can either hamper this buyer journey, say by utilizing too good to be true advertising messages, or we can help it by showing up as a recommended brand within a social circle of friends online. We must evaluate both the journey within our brand and the journey they're taking outside of increase the buyer's positive perception of us. What increases their positive perception of our brand is tact. It's knowing what they need to get through their journey. It's about convincing them you understand their needs and that you're authentic in your ability to give them what they're looking for. The best marketing maps the consumer journey and identifies where consumers will cross into your funnel. But it doesn't stop there. You then map out that journey as they move downwards within your funnel. For now, take a catalog of how a buyer navigates your funnel. What are you doing right now? Now, this is a rather robust undertaking, and it's often best handled by treating it in an agile manner. You must iterate on your buyer's journey. You cannot conceivably map out every journey, every online touchpoint, every interaction. So start by creating the current buyer journey for these two groups. The buyer who is aware of their problem, not ready to purchase, and not aware of your solution, and the buyer who is aware of their problem and ready to purchase. What does that buyer journey look like for Group A and Group B? What steps would they take? How would they go through your funnel? How does that relate to the marketing strategies we built earlier? Look at your funnel and visualize your buyer becoming aware, becoming interested, and so on. Ask yourself, how do they become aware of their problem? How would they become aware of your solution? How would they become interested in a brand? Why would they desire a particular brand? What would motivate them to convert? And how do you move them along in this funnel? Start to develop this into a map. There's no set form for this. You can do it however communicates the story. It shouldn't be complex. Remember, we're just looking at the critical path. You want to outline all the ways that they can interact with your brand. They come into your website, visit your store, read your social media, receive an email, and so on. You want to create something that you can put on the wall. This thought experiment will help you begin to connect the dots between your consumer and online marketing. And as you can see, it relates very similar to creating that marketing plan. And it should, because in practice, we're creating a plan, but with the buyer journey in mind. Your website is an important piece of your digital marketing strategy. It may serve as a gateway to gather information or the actual destination where a sale takes place. It's an opportunity for a visitor to discover what makes your brand unique, to find the information they're looking for, and to guide them in their decision to buy. You may have all sorts of marketing campaigns running, ads on Google, posts on Facebook, blog articles, and all of it is bringing in new customers, and they eventually end up on your website. All of that attention on your website makes it one of the most valuable pieces of digital real estate that you own. The better your marketing, the more visibility your website has. Online consumers are fickle, and that's because digital interactions are so commonplace. Users are spoiled by companies that are doing it well. They're just used to things working, and they expect that the information they want will be available and accurate. When it's not there, they're disappointed, and credibility is lost for whatever brand they're interacting with. The truth is, if your website isn't good, you're going to fall further and further behind as the landscape evolves. And if your website doesn't work on mobile, you're already behind. Chances are, there's a competitor with a better online experience, and your customers will seek them out if they're fumbling with yours. So let's talk about how to make sure your experience is good enough. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just has to be successful. An effective website is simple, well thought out, and highly functional. It should be intuitive and eliminate any and all barriers so your visitor can accomplish their goals effortlessly. In our marketing strategy, we're aiming for shared value, and it's the same with your website. Your business goals and the needs of your target market should overlap. And while we're drawing similarities to our marketing strategy, I'll also point out that your website only needs to appeal to your target market. So spend your effort designing it to work for that audience. As you evaluate your current website, take some time to ask yourself the following questions. First, is it mobile friendly? The amount of people using their mobile devices to browse the web is staggering, so design with mobile in mind. Now, later on, we're going to talk about something called responsive design, and that'll help give you some more ideas around the topic of being mobile friendly. The next question is, does it load properly in all modern web browsers? If your site looks one way on Safari for a Mac and another way on Chrome for PC, you're not really controlling the experience. Test it out on all of the modern browsers. I recommend browserstack.com as a way to quickly test your site across platforms. Next, ask yourself, does it answer all the questions my users have or may have? Now, a good practice is to write down things your customers ask for, whether it's via phone, email, or even when they come into your place of business. You can then check to see if those answers are easily found on your website. And if they're not, then you need to put that information online. From here, ask yourself, is the site reflective of my brand? Within the first couple of seconds, a user is going to decide how the site feels to them. You need to make sure your brand is carried through. Luxury brands need to feel elegant, whereas discount sites can focus more on the sales. Make sure your logo, tagline, and the color scheme all reflect your brand. You definitely want things to be consistent. Now from here, ask yourself, is it up to date? Nothing is worse than information that's out of date. It also creates concern with users, so be sure to keep information current. And if you have a blog, try to use it at least weekly. From here, ask yourself, are all of your services and products easy to find? Because online marketing is so niche, your target audience is likely looking for something specific. Can they find it on your website? If they can't find it and they call and you say it is a service or product that you offer, well, that's a problem. It really needs to be on your site if it is something that you offer. Another thing is, are all of your policies easy to find? That is to say, if you ship or handle returns, can the user understand the process clearly? Will they know how long shipping takes? When can they expect a call back or for that product to arrive? You want to provide ample feedback so a user knows where they stand in the process. Finally, one of the best criteria for your site is how does it compare to your competitor? Are you proud or jealous? If you're jealous, it's probably time to seriously consider whether or not you need to patch up your website. Leverage your relationships with existing customers and colleagues as a way to get feedback on your site. Ask them what they like, what they don't like, and for any ideas. As you go about creating an effective website, I also recommend hearing from someone outside of your circle. Check out usertesting.com. For a small fee, they can have a real person spend time on your website and give you honest and unbiased feedback. And as I said earlier, your website is possibly the most valuable piece of your digital marketing strategy. Take your time and conduct an honest evaluation. Having the right domain name is essential. Your domain name is how your visitors find your website. It appears on your print materials, and it's shared both online and offline as your brand recognition increases. A poorly chosen domain name will have a widespread negative impact on your online and offline efforts. Now, a good domain name is relevant, memorable, and usable. Let's talk about being relevant. Your domain name should be relevant to your business. Typically, it'll be your business name, but in some situations, it can be a bit more broad. If your business name is too long, you may need to creatively shorten it while still remaining on brand. So for example, let's say our business name is Santa Barbara Golf Course. Well, we might want to choose the domain name sbgolf.com. On the other side, if, for example, your business is called Brad's Automotive, I could buy the domain bradsauto.com, but santabarbaraauto.com is probably not helpful. Here, I'm likely just trying to make a play for SEO value, since the auto dealership would be in Santa Barbara. But SEO doesn't really work that way these days, and we'll go plenty deeper on that later in this course. The more relevant your domain name, the better, even for SEO. So stick with what makes sense to your target market. Next, make it memorable. You'll do that by keeping it short, using simple terms, and by selecting the most common top-level domain, or TLD. And when I talk about TLDs, I'm referring to .com, .net, .org, and so on. Today, .com is still king, and most people instinctually type .com even if you're listed as .net or .org. So it's ideal to have .com. If you chose, for example, sbgolf.net, your competitor might be at sbgolf.com, and you'll be helping drive traffic to their site when your visitor can't remember that right TLD. And that said, plenty of brands are adopting less common TLDs, such as .io. So if your target market or your industry is primarily using a TLD that's more relevant to them than .com, well, don't be afraid to use that as well. And some countries also have specific TLDs, such as .mx or .co.uk. Use the one that is most widespread in your region. Now, if you have a difficult to spell or pronounce business name, you'll end up with a less than memorable domain name. Instead, you'll want to try an alternative domain name that still maintains the feel of your brand. And finally, the domain should be usable. If you're adding in hyphens or leveraging prefixes other than www, you might be hampering a visitor's ability to arrive at your website. You also need to be sure it'll fit nicely into any advertisements and that it's easy to read. If you're putting two words together and the same characters are next to each other, consider the fact a user might drop one of the letters. For example, doggroomersb.com has two G's next to it. So some users might type dogroomer.com. And so you're going to want to be sure that you buy that domain name as well and redirect it to the correct location. The best domain names are short and free of special characters. After you select your domain name, I recommend buying multiple variations to prevent others from registering them. Also, if you're using a number in your domain, it's not a bad idea to buy the version with the number spelled out to avoid any complications when you share a domain name through word of mouth. Now, if your domain name is unavailable, well, it might be worth contacting the current owner to inquire about the costs of purchasing it. If you do so, try to use an email address that isn't associated with the business that you're running. Sellers are inclined to increase their price if they know what you intend to do with the domain name. And if you can't find their contact information on their website, you can try to identify them by running what's called a Who Is search. This will query the registered owner, and you can find the tools to do this at whois.net. Now, it's hard to change a domain name once you've gotten your marketing underway, so evaluate your options and make the best choice for your business. If you're not doing the work yourself, or if you don't have the luxury of an in-house web team, you'll want to bring in a professional to help build your site. You might need a designer, a developer, or even both. The truth is, there's an endless amount of options out there, and it can be challenging to find the right fit. The number one complaint I hear from small businesses is their inability to find designers and developers that get the work done. I'd like to provide you with some ideas on how you can refine the list of potential resources to something manageable. Let's start talking about graphic designers. Not all graphic designers are web designers, and not all web designers have the skills necessary to build something that meets your requirements. As you look for a designer, start by reviewing their website. How does it look? Is it appealing to you? Look at it through the eyes of your target audience. So if you find a designer that feels too edgy for your customer, they're likely not going to produce the right result. You want a website that achieves its goal. If they've got an eye for good marketing, that's also a step in the right direction. Next, look at their portfolio. If they don't have a portfolio, that's a red flag. Make note of the sites that they've worked on, read through their comments, and then visit each of those sites and explore them. I like to double-check the footer of each website to see if there's an attribution link. More often than not, you might find a link attributing a different design firm, and that would raise a red flag as well. Also, check out the recency of their portfolio. If you visit a website in their portfolio and now it's been completely redesigned, that could raise some questions. Now, some designers aren't in a hurry to keep their portfolios up to date, so they could have conducted the redesign themselves. It's also good to see relevant designs, because the more up-to-date the portfolio, the more likely that designer is to be staying current with the latest trends and techniques. Once you have a shortlist, I'd review any online reviews you can find, and then reach out to the designer and ask if you can talk to a few of their current or former clients. Talk with your designer and ask them if they're familiar with responsive design, what software they use to design their sites, and ask if you can see the process behind some of their current designs. It's really helpful to see a designer's thought process. If they're creating wireframes and mockups, you'll have some assurance that you'll be part of an iterative process. If they seem hesitant, they could be buying prefabricated templates and not putting much thought into it. Now, that's not to say templates are bad. They can be very useful for low-cost projects or as a way to build that initial foundation. Finally, ask them to review your project and provide you with a quote and a timeline. A short turnaround and a low-cost bid might seem alluring, but I'd be weary. Get a couple of proposals and compare them. Good designers aren't inexpensive. The truth of the matter is, good talent usually knows what they're worth. But your website is incredibly important, so it's worth a meaningful investment. You could take a look at Behance.net and Dribbble.com for designers and share their portfolios with your friends and colleagues to get a second opinion. Now, looking for a developer can be an even bigger challenge. The way your site is built will impact everything from your usability to your SEO. Skimp on development, and you're going to find yourself with costly problems in the long run. It's usually easy to get a sense of what you like in a designer, but if you're not familiar with programming, it can feel impossible to really vet out a developer. So start the same way as you did with the designer. Take a look at the projects they've worked on. Interact with the websites. Check the sites on mobile and in various browsers. You're looking to see if the experience is fluid and smooth. Review the websites to see if they comply with web standards. And you can conduct a search for this at validator.w3.org. You're looking for a low number of errors. A few is fine, but a large number might indicate some problems. Some developers might have a handful of errors because their clients are using old frameworks or they're not interested in paying for those fixes. In that case, check the website is fluid and smooth. Review the websites to see if they comply with web standards. And you can conduct a search for this at validator.w3.org. You're looking for a low number of errors. A few is fine, but a large number might indicate some problems. Some developers might have a handful of errors because their clients are using old frameworks or they're not interested in paying for those fixes. In that case, check the website of the developer. It should be a solid representation of their talent. Next, run the sites through Google PageSpeed Insights. You're looking for scores at least in the high 70s. If you see something low, make note and use that as a conversation point with the developer. Ask them if they know why one of the sites in their portfolio is poorly optimized, and get a sense of how they might approach the problem. It's also a great idea to ask the developer if they're contributing in any public repositories. You can ask to see their Bitbucket or GitHub account and review their activity. Someone who is leveraging the latest technology and using these repositories might be a step ahead of others. Also, ask them how they manage their projects. Do they use software such as Jira, Assembler, or Basecamp to keep tasks on track? And just as you did with your designer, check reviews. You can look at sites like Odesk for programmers, but know that a good review doesn't necessarily equate to good code. Oftentimes, it's better to have somebody local to your area. That way, you can meet in person to discuss details as the project continues on. There are many agencies overseas that can crank out great customer service and a functional product, but leave you with a tangled mess of code that just becomes difficult to deal with later. Again, ask your developer for a quote and a timeline and shop around. A mid-range web developer will likely cost you between $40 to $80 an hour, with high-end development agencies charging in the range of $100 to $150 an hour. It's important to have good development talent working on your project. Allocate plenty of time for your website. The best results are going to come with the ability to review things, conduct research, and work alongside the team building your digital real estate. Before we go further into the overview of building your own website, I suggest asking yourself a fundamental question. Can you afford time to spend building this website? Now, I'm not saying there isn't a lot of value in doing it yourself, but depending on your current skill set, you may have a lot of learning ahead of you. The knowledge you'll gain is of course valuable, but only if you can't invest your time more effectively in other ways. What I'm really trying to say is, building a website can take a lot of time. It can be hard work, and it'll have a lot of moving pieces. Even using online website builders, there's always a lot to do. Weigh out the pros and cons of this DIY project before jumping in. Remember, your website is the most important piece of your online real estate. So if you're going to roll up your sleeves and build it yourself, be ready to invest the time to do it right, or give yourself an exit strategy if you end up in over your head. There are many routes to building websites. You can learn to program, design, and build your site from scratch, or you can explore pre-built templates or even online web applications that build it for you. You can even implement semi-custom solutions that are a little blend of everything. If you're looking for solid results without the need to learn everything about web development, I'd suggest looking into WordPress. You can create powerful websites on WordPress without learning much coding. They have a huge library of custom plugins, an endless amount of pre-designed templates, and a very thorough knowledge base that you can use to build and create some really great websites. WordPress used to be for bloggers, but it's really evolved over the past few years as a very capable content management system. I find it intuitive to use, easy to scale, and you can even delegate management responsibilities with its user account capabilities. WordPress is free for self-hosted projects and is ad-supported if you have WordPress.com host it for you. They even have hosting plans suitable for businesses starting at about $99 per year, which will allow you to have a custom domain name, no advertisements, and access to a ton of advanced options. What's great with WordPress is you'll find tons of premium templates for the foundation of your new website. A quick Google search for WordPress templates will leave you with ample options, but I recommend taking a look at themeforest.net. They have thousands of templates, so you'll be bound to find something suitable. And you can always read the reviews or even contact the developer for advanced support if you run into any issues. WordPress themes are easy to install, and most of them come with responsive designs, so that gives you that head start on mobile marketing right out of the gate. You'll find more about hosted sites at WordPress.com. And for downloading and installing WordPress on your own server, you'll want to explore WordPress.org. There are some great courses right here on WordPress, so be sure to use those to your advantage if you take this route. If you're looking for an even simpler route, take a look at Squarespace.com. You'll pick from a selection of modern layouts and then customize each element by using a site building wizard. Prices start around $12 a month, then increase from there depending on your needs. The results are nice, and it's easier to set up than WordPress if you consider yourself a novice. Both WordPress and Squarespace have e-commerce options if you're doing any sort of online selling. They're not a core focus for these brands, so if you're going the e-commerce route, I'd check out another popular site called Shopify.com. They make it really easy to build and launch your e-commerce project, plus they've got credit card acceptance built right in. You'll want to explore the different pricing options and the fees associated with each, but the time and cost savings are worth it in many situations. Now, I've only listed a few options, but whether you leverage these routes or another route you discover, remember to think through the total time investment to get your site up and running. Even a simple site on WordPress can take weeks of tinkering to get off the ground. As you build your site, be sure to leverage the other concepts in this chapter on effective website building and creating web copy, as they'll help to increase the likelihood of your new site's success. Every website has a goal. It could be to distribute information, capture an email address, or sell a product. There's a reason you're putting an effort into online marketing. Your goal is for your visitor to take some sort of action after they land on your website. Now, depending on your audience, you have between 2 and 6 seconds to convince them to stay once they've arrived. What happens is these visitors will click, take a glance, and then bounce from your site if they're not interested. So, ideally, you're driving this traffic to a specific landing page. Having specific destinations allows you to reinforce their decision to click, provide an attention-grabbing visual or headline, and frame the information in a way that helps achieve your goal. Now, some new visitors will inevitably arrive on your homepage, and that's okay. But it's important to avoid campaigns that drive visitors directly to your homepage. It's the least conversion-friendly page on your website, since it tends to be fairly broad. The key to making your website convert is to build goal-specific landing pages. These landing pages come in a few varieties, but I'm going to focus on the 4 most common types: teaser pages, squeeze pages, infomercials, and viral pages. These are all ones you've likely encountered as you've browsed the web. The first is a teaser page. The objective of a teaser page is to give your visitor just enough information to get them to click through to the next step of your process. Teaser pages are useful for products that are nearing launch. By creating anticipation and excitement, you can convince the visitor to take an action, such as providing an email address or even pre-ordering. You can also use these pages to tease out any unqualified leads. If you have a specific product for a select audience, you can leverage teaser pages to ask them questions one step at a time, slowly revealing more about your product or offering depending on the answers. Next, we have the squeeze page. And the goal of the squeeze page is to capture people's contact information. Typically, a visitor exchanges their contact information for something of moderate value, say a webinar, ebook, or an exclusive discount. The lead information can be as simple as an email or as complex as 4 or 5 qualifying questions. A good squeeze page keeps the message above the fold, stays on target, and has a strong enough value to be effective. Let's move on to the viral landing page. The goal of this page is to invite your customers to enlist their friends. You might have a reward that is earned through a number of shares, for example. This could be each friend who signs up gets a $5 credit. Your viral landing page might also include a funny video or an infographic. And finally, we have the infomercial page. These are typically designed in the same style as an infomercial you'd see on TV. The idea is in one page, typically a long page, you'll share all the information about the product, what it is, how it works, its benefits, testimonials, and a special offer if you buy it today. Infomercial pages are effective at driving sales for certain products and are typically used by affiliate marketers when running large campaigns. If you're looking for landing page inspiration, check out landbook.com. It's a great place to see how other designers and marketers are implementing best practices. When it comes to building your landing page, select the right type and then focus on these 5 things. First, define the goal. What needs to happen? Second, what information from the user do you need to accomplish that goal? Is it an email, phone number, credit card? Third, outline what the user needs to do. Fill out a form, invite a friend, and so on. Fourth, what information does the user need to be convinced? What is of shared value? And finally, how will you track the results? It's important to make sure your landing page has your logo, an explanation of the offer, a very compelling headline, related testimonials, and links to reviews, along with a strong call to action. After you build your landing page, or if you already have pages on your site executing on these goals, it's important to continuously improve them. When someone starts by clicking on your link, maybe fills out the first page, but then never enters their credit card, they've abandoned. And you want to fix abandonment by finding the pain point. Now, we'll talk more on this later when we get into conversion funnels, but here's why this is important. If you fix conversions, you can increase your revenue without having to increase your traffic. 10,000 visitors at a 1% conversion rate equals 100 sales. 10,000 visitors at a 3% conversion rate, well, that's 300 sales. You can see which one's better. Focus on keeping your landing pages concise, just the right amount of information necessary to get the job done. And make sure you add confidence to your visitors by linking to your privacy policy, having a valid SSL certificate, and including your contact information on every page. Now, there are many ways to improve the conversion on your website. Obviously, not every page can be a landing page, but landing pages allow you to build isolated tests, and you can then apply those learnings to the rest of your website. Here's the reality. People just don't read on the internet. They scan. They'll jump from a headline to an image and then scan a few bullet points. And this means when it comes to the copy on your website, less is more. And with less words to work with, it's important that you make each one count. We'll call all the text on your website copy. Now, I'm not going to be discussing blog articles. That's a whole different beast. For now, we want to focus on your web copy. Writing engaging web copy starts with knowing your audience. You're writing specifically for them and no one else. So you need to deliver your information in a way that meets their needs. And you have to be mindful of the fact that for whatever reason, they're likely in a hurry to find that information. The goal is to write great copy, not just create content. It's different. To illustrate, I'm going to use some examples prepared by a professional copywriter friend of mine, Tom Albrighton. Here, he shows an advertisement for a camera. Content would be to say 14.1 megapixels. But copywriting would be using the tagline, because memories fade. Another example, you might describe your software as multi-site networking and collaboration solution. Copywriting would instead use the line, work together even when you're apart. As you can see, copywriting really adds to the experience. It connects your customer to your brand, your purpose, and it tugs on their emotions a little. If you want more of these examples, you can find them on his website, abccopywriting.com. So, as you approach your project, start by getting rid of any long introductions and word-heavy descriptions. Stick to clear, concise, and punctual copy. Use clever headings to your advantage, and break up your text with bullet points. Building on-topic and relevant content will not only help your users, but it'll help you out as you work to rank in the search engines as well. One thing I see often is pages that put their headline as About Us or Contact Us for the page you're on. Now, those might be helpful in the title or the breadcrumb, but save that heading space for something captivating and attention-grabbing, especially on your landing pages. As you move into the content, deliver the most important points of your story first, and then add the supporting details as you go. This way, if a user stops reading early, they've got a gist of what you're trying to say. Now, before you get started, look at each page of your website and answer these questions. Who will read this copy? Why are they reading this? What should they feel when they read this page? What am I trying to accomplish with this copy? And what benefit and feature do I need them to really understand? Use these answers to build your first draft, save it, and then write it again with half as many words. Compare the two, and only add back in what you need to reinforce the points that are lacking. Now, at some point, you might decide it's a good idea to hire a professional copywriter. I can't stress the importance of good copy enough. So this is a worthwhile investment if you aren't able to spend the time to refine your own copywriting skills. When you look for a copywriter, read through their work. Copywriters often write in specific niches, and while they're happy to adjust their tone and style for your needs, it's often better to find someone who understands your audience. A copywriter should be invited into the project at the beginning. This way, they can gather all the facts, understand the challenges ahead, and build you exactly what you need. You can utilize a copywriter to write slogans, ad ideas, entire websites, or focused landing page copy. Most work on a daily or half-daily rate, and you can expect to pay anywhere from $600 to $800 per day. Write with the approach of connecting your audience to your business, convincing them to take the next steps, and affirming their conversion. Over the past few years, we've seen impressive growth of tablets and smartphones, all coming with different screen sizes. It would be an incredible amount of effort to build a design for each screen size and then try to keep up with new devices on top of it. And that's where responsive web design comes in. This approach allows your site to be adaptive. The page responds automatically based on the screen size and even the orientation a user is viewing it in. It works because a responsive website is designed around building blocks, and these blocks can break and collapse under one another, stretch and shrink, and even adjust the font size and image size based on the available screen real estate. To show you an example, let's take a look at a responsive design in action. At a glance, we can see how this looks on a desktop, tablet, and a phone. But to see this in action, let's look at a desktop browser. What I'll do is simply drag the window to shrink the viewable area. This sort of simulates different screen sizes. You can see the page starts to respond, tweaking its design and adjusting to match the available real estate, which is great is that the same code is served to all the devices. You won't need to build multiple